6. A man named Kai watched in horror as his girlfriend was kidnapped right in front of him. The man responsible was someone he once trusted, a former comrade who had fought beside him in the past. By the time Kai arrived at the scene, the mastermind was already stepping into a car. The person behind everything was Assemblyman Victor Han, a powerful South Korean politician. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed through the air. Kai's girlfriend collapsed onto the ground. Before Kai could even process what happened, someone struck him from behind with a metal club, knocking him unconscious. When Kai finally woke up, he discovered a gun in his hand. He had been set up. Authorities now believed he was responsible for the deaths of several innocent civilians. In a single moment, the decorated Special Forces soldier became a fugitive wanted by the law. With no other option, Kai fled to Turkey, planning that one day he would return to Korea to take revenge for the woman he loved. At a train station, he noticed a young woman running frantically. Her name was Lena, and several men were chasing after her. When she realized Kai was also Korean, she desperately begged him for help. But Kai wanted nothing to do with it. He brushed her hand away and kept walking. Left with no choice, Lena continued running. Soon, the men chasing her caught up. Just as they were about to grab her, Kai suddenly appeared. Despite trying to stay uninvolved, his instincts as a trained fighter took over. Kai moved like a professional mercenary, delivering a rapid series of precise strikes that forced the attacker backward. Within moments, he knocked the man to the ground. When Kai checked the man's ID, he was shocked to discover the attacker was actually a police officer. Realizing things could quickly spiral out of control, Kai immediately left the station. But Lena ran in front of him again, blocking his path and begging him to take her back to Korea. At that moment, 2 patrol officers approached after noticing something suspicious. Kai signaled Lena to leave quickly, then swiftly dealt with the officers before disappearing from the area. When he finally exited the station, he saw Lena again, but this time she had been captured. She sat inside a car, pounding on the window and pleading for Kai to help her. However, the man standing beside the vehicle showed a police badge and warned Kai not to interfere with an official arrest. With no way to help, Kai reluctantly stepped into a taxi and headed straight for the airport. 6 months later, Kai quietly returned to South Korea. To keep a low profile, he worked as a simple laborer for a construction and decoration company. One day, his supervisor asked him to repair a large billboard. What seemed like an ordinary task ended up changing his life. The billboard displayed the image of a powerful politician, Congressman Daniel Seo, one of the leading candidates for the upcoming presidential election. Inside the building behind the billboard, Congressman Seo was enjoying a private meeting with a mysterious woman. Unknown to him, she had secretly slipped a powerful sedative into his wine. Unaware of the trap, Seo leaned closer to her and tried to kiss her. At that moment, a television interview caught his attention. The person on screen was his wife, Madame Elise Seo. She spoke calmly and elegantly during the interview, presenting the image of a gentle and respectable future first lady. Meanwhile, Seo finished the rest of his wine. The atmosphere in the room became increasingly intimate as the woman slowly began to remove his clothes. Then Seo suddenly noticed someone outside adjusting the billboard. It was Kai. He told the woman to close the curtains, but before he could finish speaking, dizziness overwhelmed him. Only then did he realize his wine had been drugged. But it was already too late. The woman smiled faintly at Kai through the window before pulling the curtains shut. At the same time, a group of men dressed in black stormed the building. Their movements were fast and perfectly coordinated, clearly showing military-level training. The building's security guards were completely powerless against them. These men had been sent by a rival presidential candidate. Their mission was simple: gather evidence of Seo's secret affair and destroy his political career. From outside the window, Kai saw everything. He quickly urged an elderly woman nearby, someone who had previously helped him, to leave the area immediately. Just then, one of the attackers noticed Kai through the glass and suddenly shoved the old woman to the ground. Seeing her injured, Kai could no longer stay out of it. Without hesitation, he grabbed a screwdriver and hurled it at the window. The glass cracked instantly, allowing him to kick through it and jump inside. Chaos erupted as Kai charged into the room. One by one, the attackers were sent flying across the room as Kai fought them off with brutal efficiency. During the struggle, a security guard triggered the emergency alarm, sealing off the congressman's room. Hearing the alarm, more attackers rushed upstairs. Watching the surveillance monitors, one of the security officers panicked and called for backup. Meanwhile, Kai was fighting more than 10 armed men alone, his movements sharp and precise like a trained weapon. Soon afterward, the police arrived, forcing the attackers to retreat. Kai watched silently as the injured elderly woman was carried into an ambulance. Only then did he quietly leave the scene. When Congressman Seo finally woke up, the first thing he did was call his wife. He ordered her to deal with the worker who had seen his face. He spoke so boldly because their marriage was nothing more than a political alliance. In truth, both of them were simply using each other. Elise's powerful family supported Seo's presidential campaign. If he succeeded, it would help her reclaim control of her family's massive business empire. After ending the call, Elise contacted the leader of the raid team and ordered him to eliminate the witness immediately. Meanwhile, Kai returned home and began packing his belongings, preparing to disappear again. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a vehicle driving over a manhole cover outside. The strike team had already tracked him down. Elsewhere, Captain Marcus Cho carefully reviewed the security footage. To his shock, he recognized Kai as a former soldier he had once trained in the Special Forces, the strongest fighter under his command. Marcus immediately ordered the team leader to cancel the operation. If they continued, he warned, the entire unit could be wiped out. The man they were targeting was extremely dangerous. But the strike team commander dismissed the warning, believing a construction worker posed no real threat. In his mind, there was no way a single man could stand against an elite tactical squad. What he didn't know was that Kai was capable of defeating every one of them. Within minutes, Kai cut the power to the building and, moving silently through the darkness, single-handedly defeated the entire raid team before slipping away into the night. When Captain Cho arrived later, he was relieved to see that Kai had spared the soldiers' lives. However, the failure made Madame Elise furious. Even after sending a full strike team, they still couldn't capture him. Captain Cho explained to her that Kai had once been the most powerful soldier in the Special Forces, and now he had become one of the world's most dangerous mercenaries. With skills like his, even 10 strike teams might not be enough to stop him. Instead of fighting him, Cho suggested it might be wiser to bring Kai over to their side. But Elise was far too arrogant to consider that option. Instead, she ordered her people to track him down again. Using advanced facial recognition technology, the team soon located Kai's identity. While tracking Kai's location, the investigators eventually discovered where he had been hiding. During his escape, Kai had once helped an elderly couple who were struggling on the roadside. Grateful for his kindness, the couple welcomed him into their home and treated him warmly. They had lost their own son many years earlier, and because of that, they began to see Kai as the child they never had. Touched by their kindness, Kai decided to stay for a few days and help them with chores around the house. But he had no idea that his presence would soon bring terrible danger to their home. One day, while Kai was out driving to buy some supplies, the assassin hired by Madame Elise finally arrived. The man stormed into the house, tied the elderly couple to chairs, and demanded that they reveal Kai's location. However, the couple refused to say anything. To them, Kai had already become part of their family. Angered by their silence, the assassin poured gasoline around them and pulled out a lighter, preparing to burn the house down. At that very moment, Kai returned. Seeing the couple in danger because of him, his eyes filled with fury. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and attacked the assassin. But this opponent was not an ordinary fighter. The two struggled fiercely, exchanging powerful blows. It took Kai some time before he finally managed to overpower the man and force him to the ground. Kai demanded to know who had sent him. The assassin stayed silent. Only when Kai grabbed a hammer and prepared to strike did the man finally break. He confessed that the person behind the attack was Madame Elise, the wife of the powerful politician. The moment Kai heard this, he immediately jumped onto his motorcycle and rode straight toward Elise's mansion. When he arrived, he easily knocked down the guard stationed at the gate and walked inside with confidence. His sudden appearance shocked Elise so much that she accidentally dropped the wine glass in her hand. But instead of panicking, she calmly studied him and even mocked him for coming alone. Kai warned her that if she ever tried to harm him or anyone connected to him again, he would hunt her down no matter where she hid. Elise only smiled. She had already prepared a trap. Within seconds, armed men rushed into the room and aimed their rifles at Kai. Outnumbered, he was quickly restrained and dragged down into the underground parking area. Just as the men were preparing to eliminate him, police sirens suddenly echoed outside the mansion. The authorities had arrived while searching for the stolen motorcycle Kai had been riding. Taking advantage of the distraction, Kai secretly poured oil onto his hands, allowing him to slip free from the ropes. When one of the henchmen opened the trunk of the car to check the noise, Kai suddenly kicked him down and slammed him against the ground. Hearing the struggle, the rest of the guards rushed over, but Kai quickly knocked them out one by one. Within moments, the entire group had been defeated. Grabbing one of their guns, Kai headed back into the mansion. Inside, Elise's secretary Mr. Dong froze in fear when he saw Kai return. At that moment, Elise slowly walked down the staircase. Kai calmly remarked that this was already their second meeting. This time, however, Elise no longer looked confident. With a gun pointed at her, her life was now in Kai's hands. Suddenly, a young woman's voice echoed from behind him. "Go ahead," she said. "Pull the trigger." Kai turned around in surprise. Standing there was the same girl he had once seen at the train station. Her name was Lena. It turned out Lena was actually the illegitimate daughter of Congressman Daniel Seo. She had been secretly imprisoned in Turkey for years, and Madame Elise had only recently brought her back to Korea. Before Kai could ask anything more, Lena was quickly taken away by the guards. At the same time, more security rushed into the mansion. With no other option, Kai grabbed Elise and held her hostage. He ordered everyone to step back and demanded that a car be prepared. Trying to regain control of the situation, Elise threatened him. She told Kai that if he surrendered, she might still allow him to live. Kai only smirked and replied that he would first need to ask the gun in his hand whether it agreed. Then he revealed something unexpected. He took a phone hidden inside a flower box and explained that everything that had happened in the mansion had already been recorded. The device was programmed to automatically send the video to government authorities and media outlets within 24 hours. If anything happened to him, the evidence would be exposed. This clever move infuriated Elise and her secretary. Still holding her hostage, Kai forced Elise into a car and ordered her to drive. Once inside the vehicle, Elise's true personality returned. She tried to negotiate, offering money to buy the recordings from him, but Kai didn't believe a word she said. He reminded her that her weakness was now in his hands. Before Elise could respond, a motorcycle suddenly appeared behind their car. Moments later, Elise realized something was wrong. No matter how hard she pressed the brake pedal, the car wouldn't slow down. The brakes had been sabotaged. The rider on the motorcycle was controlling the car remotely. It became clear that these attackers were enemies of Elise, people who wanted to eliminate her by causing a deadly accident. Kai quickly prepared his weapon, but Elise warned him that the car's windows were bulletproof and could not be opened easily. Thinking quickly, Kai ordered her to drive toward a narrow road. He switched seats with her and began steering the car himself, trying to ram the motorcycle. But the rider skillfully avoided every attempt. Kai pressed the accelerator harder, pushing the vehicle to nearly 180 kilometers per hour. The speed created enough distance to briefly break the motorcycle's control signal. At that moment, Elise managed to partially open one of the windows. Kai warned her to be careful as he tried to aim his weapon at the attacker behind them. However, the extreme speed made it nearly impossible to shoot accurately. Elsewhere, Secretary Dong heard the chaos over the radio and realized something had gone terribly wrong. Team leader Marcus Cho also recognized that the motorcycle rider was the biggest threat that night and quickly ordered his men to deal with them. Meanwhile, Kai noticed that the road ahead led toward a restricted construction zone. He suddenly realized the motorcycle rider's true plan, to force the car into an accident and kill Elise without leaving any trace. But by then, it was already too late. The car raced straight into the construction site, smashing through equipment and barriers. The vehicle crashed onto the street and rolled several times before finally stopping. Both Kai and Elise were badly injured. Construction workers rushed over and managed to pull Kai from the wreckage. Moments later, the damaged car burst into flames. Realizing the danger, the workers quickly ran away. Despite the intense pain throughout his body, Kai crawled back toward the burning vehicle and desperately tried to open the door to rescue Elise. Inside the car, Elise was trapped and unable to move. All she could do was watch Kai struggle outside. Nearby, Secretary Dong also wanted to rush forward to save her. But the flames had already grown too large. Running into that fire would mean certain death. Just when everyone believed the flames would consume everything, Kai suddenly staggered out of the fire while carrying Madame Elise in his arms. He had barely taken a few steps when the burning vehicle behind them exploded violently. A heavy piece of debris slammed into Kai's back, sending him crashing forward. Elise could only watch as Kai struggled to protect her. For the first time, the cold and commanding look in her eyes disappeared. Instead, her expression softened with unexpected concern. She immediately ordered her men to do whatever it took to save Kai's life. The accident involving Elise, a powerful political figure and presidential candidate, quickly became headline news across the country. Newspapers and television stations were filled with speculation about what had caused the crash. Even the hospital director personally came to check on her condition. But Elise seemed far less concerned about herself. What worried her most was Kai's condition. When doctors informed her that he wasn't seriously injured, she finally let out a sigh of relief. A rare smile appeared on her face. Meanwhile, her husband, Congressman Daniel Seo, sat nearby, watching everything in silence. Their marriage had always been nothing more than a political arrangement. Elise calmly helped him loosen his shirt collar and messed up his hair slightly. She explained that it would make him look like a devoted husband who had stayed awake all night caring for his injured wife. Later, when Daniel Seo appeared in front of reporters, he looked exhausted and emotional. With tears in his eyes, he spoke to the media about how much his wife meant to him. He even claimed that he would withdraw from the presidential race, declaring that he wanted to focus on protecting his family and fighting against the dark forces threatening the country. The performance fooled the public completely. In reality, the dramatic display only strengthened his reputation and made his path toward the presidency even smoother. However, there was one thing he refused to acknowledge. He had an illegitimate daughter he had not seen in more than 10 years, Lena. Daniel knew very well that if the public discovered the existence of his hidden daughter, it could destroy his entire political career. Meanwhile, Captain Marcus Cho came to visit Kai in his hospital room. He tried to persuade Kai to join Elise's newly formed special task force. Marcus had even prepared a brand new identity for him, so he could start over. But after being betrayed by his own comrades in the past, Kai had no interest in returning to that world. All he wanted now was to live quietly. So he refused the offer. Elsewhere in the hospital, Elise's younger brother, the chairman of a powerful corporate empire, had also come to visit her. As he was leaving the hospital room, he unexpectedly crossed paths with another presidential candidate. This man was secretly the mastermind behind Elise's recent accident. At that exact moment, the elevator doors opened. Standing inside was Kai. The moment Kai saw the man, his eyes widened with shock. The politician standing before him was the very same person responsible for killing his girlfriend years ago. Seeing his enemy appear so suddenly filled Kai with overwhelming rage. His hands trembled as anger surged through him. His eyes shifted toward the gun carried by one of the bodyguards. This was the perfect chance to take revenge. Kai took a deep breath and prepared to strike. But suddenly, he snapped back to reality. Everything he had just imagined was only in his mind. He forced himself to calm down, but the emotional shock caused the injuries from the crash to flare up again. The pain became so intense that he could barely stand. One of Elise's bodyguards had to help him out of the elevator. As the doors slowly closed, Kai watched helplessly. The man he had just seen was Senator Victor Han, Daniel Seo's biggest rival in the presidential race, and the man Kai had been searching for all these years. After being discharged from the hospital, Kai returned to his apartment. There, he began preparing his revenge. Using his skills, he carefully constructed a special bomb. The device was designed to explode when it detected a person's breath nearby. Next, he studied Victor Han's daily routine. Eventually, he discovered that the senator frequently visited the same hair salon. Kai went there ahead of time and pretended to accidentally drop something inside the changing room. This trick allowed him to briefly send the staff away. While alone, he secretly planted a small sensor device inside one of the senator's coats. Afterward, Kai moved to the main lobby. He had already planted explosives inside the building's revolving glass door. The moment Victor Han walked through it, the sensor in his clothing would activate the bomb. Kai's revenge plan was finally about to succeed. But just as everything was about to unfold, something unexpected happened. A young child suddenly ran across the lobby and rushed toward the revolving door. He couldn't allow an innocent child to die because of his plan. Immediately, he moved forward to stop the child. Unfortunately, one of Victor Han's bodyguards stepped in front of him and blocked his path. Just when tragedy seemed inevitable, the revolving door suddenly malfunctioned and stopped rotating. Following his security team's instructions, Victor Han was forced to exit the building through a different side door. Kai quietly let out a breath of relief. But the bodyguard who had blocked him earlier began to study him carefully. Something about Kai seemed suspicious. The guard demanded to see identification. Then Kai noticed a scar on the man's hand. Instantly, he recognized him. This was the same man in black who had previously infiltrated the building during the earlier attack. Without hesitation, Kai grabbed him and executed a powerful shoulder throw, slamming him onto the floor. However, the bodyguard immediately called for backup. Realizing he was outnumbered, Kai had no choice but to retreat. He ran toward the elevator and headed for the rooftop. Fortunately, he had already prepared an escape rope there in case something like this happened. As Kai reached the rooftop, he prepared to escape using the rope he had set up earlier. However, something unexpected caught his attention. A car was parked quietly below. Inside the vehicle sat Madame Elise, the powerful matriarch of the wealthy family. She looked up at him calmly and reminded him that his identity had already been exposed. She warned him that continuing his revenge alone would only make things far more difficult. This time, when she offered him a position in her private security unit, Kai did not refuse. After all, they now shared the same enemy. Joining her team would give him the best chance to eventually take revenge. With that decision, Kai was given a new identity. Because of his impressive skills and striking appearance, he quickly drew attention from many of the female employees when he first arrived at the company. From that moment on, Kai was no longer known by his real name. His new codename was K2. Not long after joining the team, Kai received his first assignment. His mission was to protect Lena, the hidden daughter of the politician Daniel Seo. Team leader Marcus Cho made it clear that Lena could not be seen by the public before the presidential election. For that reason, Kai was assigned to secretly monitor her every movement. From a surveillance room filled with screens, he watched Lena's daily routine. One evening, he saw her walking downstairs wearing pajamas. Curious, he paid closer attention. Lena walked straight to the kitchen. She ignored the prepared meals on the table and instead opened the refrigerator, searching through everything inside. Finally, she found a packet of instant noodles. She hugged it happily and even did a small dance of excitement. Watching through the camera, Kai couldn't help but feel strangely amused. Next, Lena took out a pot and prepared to cook the noodles. However, she quickly realized she didn't even know how to turn on the stove. Seeing her standing there in disappointment made Kai feel unexpectedly concerned. Not knowing what to do, he stepped onto the balcony to get some fresh air. But when he looked up, he noticed a shadow moving on the rooftop. Kai immediately climbed up to investigate. To his surprise, he found Lena sitting there quietly, secretly eating the noodles she had prepared. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she remembered her late mother. Inside the attic nearby, Kai also noticed a framed photograph showing Lena with her parents when she was younger. The next morning, before Lena came downstairs, Kai secretly heated water in the kitchen and then hurried back to the monitoring room. Sure enough, Lena entered the kitchen again. This time, she discovered that she could cook the noodles easily. Her excitement made her look as happy as a child. Meanwhile, Madame Elise was preparing to attend her aunt's funeral. She carefully applied her makeup, knowing that the event was extremely important. Her aunt had left behind a massive inheritance worth over $20 million, and Elise was expected to claim it. Security at the funeral was extremely strict. Bodyguards were not allowed to enter the venue. Because of this, Kai had to disguise himself as her personal driver to stay close and ensure her safety. After the memorial ceremony ended, Elise was suddenly informed that an emergency family meeting had been scheduled. Before she entered the meeting room, Kai secretly placed a pen inside her handbag. He explained that it was actually a listening device. If the atmosphere inside the meeting became tense, she only needed to press the pen once, so he could hear what was happening. If she pressed it twice, it would signal that she was in danger, and he would immediately come inside. With that, Elise walked alone toward the meeting room. The hallway was filled with people dressed in black suits. The moment she stepped inside, the door was locked behind her. She sat calmly at the table while a lawyer opened a secured briefcase containing her aunt's will. The contents were surprisingly simple. All of the aunt's assets were to be transferred to a charitable foundation, and Elise would be placed in charge of managing it. This decision immediately angered many of the relatives present. They forced the lawyer to leave the room. Instantly, the atmosphere turned hostile. Elise felt a growing sense of unease and discreetly pressed the pen in her handbag. Outside, Kai immediately began listening to the conversation. Inside the room, Elise's stepfather and stepmother demanded that she divide the company shares among the family members. Elise calmly replied that they must respect the aunt's final wishes. Unexpectedly, the chairman of the family suddenly offered to buy the shares for 3 times their value. Before Elise could respond, Daniel Seo, who was sitting beside her, commented that the offer sounded reasonable. With that money, his presidential campaign would become much easier. It was clear that the inheritance was extremely valuable. Whoever controlled those shares would become the true heir of the powerful family. Elise simply smiled and rejected the offer. Seeing her refusal, the other relatives became even more aggressive. They announced that they would call an emergency vote from the board of directors to appoint a new chairman for the charity, effectively stripping Elise of her authority. Furious, Elise accidentally knocked the pen off the table. Her half-brother picked it up curiously and pressed the button. Instantly, the signal outside was cut off. Now Elise was completely isolated inside the sealed meeting room. The relatives began threatening her directly. If she refused to hand over the shares, they would remove her from her position and continue supporting Daniel Seo's presidential campaign without her. Desperate, Elise tried to call for help using her phone. But she quickly discovered that the signal in the room had been blocked. All she could do was laugh bitterly. Was the empire her father built about to be taken away from her? Outside, Kai grew increasingly worried when the listening signal suddenly disappeared. He walked toward the building entrance, pretending to retrieve an umbrella from the trunk of the car. But when he tried to enter the hallway, several bodyguards blocked his path. Not wanting to waste time, Kai swiftly knocked them down one by one. None of them were a match for his combat skills. With a powerful shoulder throw, he took down the last guard. Since the meeting room door was locked from the inside, Kai triggered the fire alarm. His plan worked immediately. Panic spread throughout the building, forcing everyone inside to rush toward the exits. Soon the meeting room door opened, and the relatives hurried out in confusion. In the end, only Elise remained sitting alone inside the room. Kai walked toward her and calmly opened an umbrella. Elise slowly turned around and immediately recognized him. Once again, he had come to rescue her. Kai quietly handed her a handkerchief. She held it tightly in her hands. In that brief moment, something in her expression softened. Although she had never pressed the emergency signal twice, Kai had still understood that she needed help. Under Kai's protection, Elise calmly walked out of the meeting room. The bodyguards standing outside tried to block their path, but with only a single sharp glance from Kai, they immediately stepped aside. Even Daniel Seo, who was rushing after them, was firmly told by Elise to take another car and stop following them. After rescuing Elise, the incident caused a huge stir within the organization. Kai later went directly to the group's secret intelligence headquarters. To reach it, he first entered a very unusual elevator. The display showed the floor numbers rising as if the elevator were moving upward, but in reality, it was descending rapidly deep underground. When the doors opened, Kai was stunned by what he saw. The facility was heavily guarded. Access required both fingerprint verification and a retina scan. This was the secret command center where Elise's organization gathered and analyzed intelligence from various sources. When Elise noticed Kai entering the room, she ended the meeting she was having with her staff. This time, Kai had not come for a mission. Instead, Elise wanted to know about his past. Kai was reluctant to speak about it. He still didn't understand why Senator Victor Han had murdered his girlfriend years ago. Elise then introduced him to the heart of the Intelligence Center, a powerful system run by advanced artificial intelligence. Through complex data analysis, the system might be able to uncover the truth Kai had been searching for. She demonstrated the technology, showing how the system could reconstruct past events using collected information. After seeing what it could do, Kai finally decided to tell her the story he had been hiding. Years ago, his girlfriend had been a refugee in a war zone. After Kai rescued her, she began working as a Korean translator for the military. However, Kai never fully understood why Victor Han had appeared in that region. All he knew was that shortly after completing a translation assignment, his girlfriend was suddenly killed. Soon after, Kai himself was framed for the crime. But he would never forget the face of the man responsible. Using the data Kai provided, the AI system analyzed Victor Han's activities during that period. Eventually, it reached a disturbing conclusion. Victor Han had secretly been selling weapons to rebel forces in the area. Kai's girlfriend, while working as a translator, had accidentally discovered the illegal operation. To silence her, Han had ordered her death. Seeing the pain in Kai's eyes, Elise quietly asked him whether he had truly loved her.
Kai has started.
At that time, he himself had never fully understood what his feelings were. Later that night, Kai returned to the villa. Inside, he noticed one of the bodyguards asleep, and Lena's room was completely empty. Earlier that day, Lena had seen a news broadcast showing her father, Daniel Seo. The report said that the senator would be attending a public event at a church the following day. Lena decided she would take this opportunity to meet him. For more than 10 years, she had been locked away overseas. Even now that she had returned to Korea, her father still refused to see her. Determined to confront him, Lena quietly slipped downstairs. While a female bodyguard was distracted watching television, Lena secretly entered the guard's room. She took the access card and communication device. Then she injected a small amount of tranquilizer into the guard's coffee. Not long afterward, the bodyguard lost consciousness. Lena changed into the guard's uniform and quietly slipped out of the building. For the first time in years, she experienced a sense of freedom. Meanwhile, Kai soon discovered that Lena had escaped. Lena had gone to find her mother's former maid, hoping the old woman could explain what had happened in the past. But unfortunately, the elderly woman had begun losing her memory. She kept repeating the same warning again and again. Lena should return to America immediately. The old woman insisted that Elise knew everything, and that staying in Korea would only bring danger to Lena and her mother. These words left Lena deeply suspicious. Could Elise have been involved in her mother's suffering? At the same time, Kai and Captain Marcus Cho rushed to the location to search for her. But despite searching the entire area, they could not find Lena. What they didn't realize was that Lena had disguised herself as a nun and walked right past them without being recognized. The church event began as scheduled. During the ceremony, Daniel Seo suddenly looked up and saw Lena standing among the crowd. For a brief moment, their eyes met. But Daniel did not dare approach her. If the public discovered that the presidential candidate had a secret daughter, it could completely destroy his political career. Instead, he lowered his head and quietly asked Elise why Lena had been allowed to appear there. Immediately, Elise called Captain Cho and ordered him to remove Lena from the area as quickly as possible. However, the church was crowded with people. Any aggressive action would attract unwanted attention. As the ceremony ended, the nuns began leaving the church one by one. But Lena refused to move. She continued staring at her father, hoping he would acknowledge her. When the bodyguards finally tried to take her away by force, Kai stepped in to intervene. Music filled the church hall as Lena stood there singing, tears streaming down her face. Elise was furious, but could not create a scene in public. Before leaving, Lena looked at Kai with a worried expression. Then she turned once more toward her father. To her shock, Daniel Seo coldly turned his head away. The woman standing beside him looked extremely angry. Kai immediately ran outside after Lena, but by the time he reached the street, she had disappeared without a trace. The only thing left behind was a small note for her father. In it, she wrote that she had gotten lost and asked Senator Daniel Seo to come find her. However, Daniel had no idea where she had gone. Meanwhile, Lena wandered into a park that held many childhood memories. It was the same place where she used to play with her father when she was very young. While she sat there quietly remembering those days, two girls nearby were taking selfies. They didn't realize that Lena appeared in the background of one of their photos. When the picture was later uploaded online, the National Security Agency quickly identified Lena in the image and traced her location. Kai was immediately ordered to go and bring her back. When Lena saw him arriving, she looked at him suspiciously. Kai had no choice but to lie. He told her that her father had sent him to pick her up. He even added that her father had prepared strawberry ice cream for her. Unfortunately, Kai had no idea that Lena was severely allergic to strawberries. Thinking her father was still angry with her, Lena forced herself to eat the ice cream anyway. Within minutes, she began struggling to breathe. Her body reacted violently to the allergy, and she eventually collapsed in Kai's arms. Realizing what had happened, Kai was overwhelmed with guilt. Lena had lost consciousness due to the allergic reaction. Panicking, Kai drove as fast as he could. But because of Lena's sensitive identity, he couldn't take her to a public hospital. Instead, he rushed her directly to the National Security Agency headquarters, where emergency medical staff were waiting. Fortunately, Lena received treatment just in time. When she woke up later, she still felt weak, but the doctor told her that Kai had brought her in quickly enough to save her life. Remembering how Kai had performed CPR to keep her breathing, Lena felt a quiet sense of comfort. At that moment, Kai also learned the truth about Lena's past from the agency's commander. Years earlier, Lena's mother had been abandoned by Daniel Seo. Pregnant and alone, she moved to America and gave birth there. Later she returned to Korea with her daughter, but by then Daniel had already married Elise. Even so, Daniel secretly continued his relationship with Lena's mother. Not long afterward, Lena's mother died under mysterious circumstances. Soon after, Elise took control of the situation and sent Lena overseas, effectively keeping her hidden for years. When Elise later arrived at the agency, she went directly to Lena's hospital room while Kai stood guard outside. Lena was convinced that Elise had been responsible for her mother's death. Now she believed Elise was also trying to stop her from meeting her father. Elise insisted that she had nothing to do with it. According to her, Daniel simply didn't want to see Lena. Outside the room, Kai listened to the conversation and felt guilty. He promised Lena that he would personally bring Daniel's CO to meet her. Meanwhile, Daniel was preparing to deliver an important campaign speech. Before the event began, he behaved inappropriately toward a young makeup artist who was helping him prepare. After finishing the speech, he hurried toward a private room with her. What he didn't know was that the woman had been planted there by his political enemies. As Daniel entered the bathroom, the makeup artist quietly opened the door. A bodyguard handed her a syringe filled with anesthetic. Kai, who had been secretly watching nearby, immediately realized what was happening. He burst into the room and quickly stopped the situation. Pulling Daniel away, he told him that someone was trying to trap him. When Daniel saw the unconscious woman on the floor, he immediately understood the danger. At that moment, police sirens sounded outside the building. Thanks to Kai's quick intervention, Daniel avoided being caught in a scandal that could have destroyed his political career. Kai quickly escorted him away from the scene. However, when Kai mentioned taking him to meet Lena, Daniel suddenly panicked and demanded that the car stop. Kai ignored him and kept driving. Eventually, Daniel realized that Lena had never hated him. She believed she was simply a burden to him. Hearing this made Daniel fall silent. At last, he agreed to meet his daughter. He asked Kai to continue protecting Lena carefully. Daniel also explained that he needed to become president in order to break free from the influence of Elise's powerful family. Only then, he believed, could he truly protect Lena. Meanwhile, Elise was watching everything unfold from the secret command center. When Daniel finally met Lena, he carefully avoided mentioning anything about her allergy or the recent incident. Lena tearfully spoke about her mother's death, still believing Elise was responsible. Daniel could only comfort her and say that the past could not be changed. For him, the most important thing now was the presidential election. Lena still felt like she was a burden to him, so she quietly lay down to rest. After several days of treatment, Lena fully recovered. Kai eventually brought her back to the villa. During the time they spent together, Lena began to feel that Kai was different from the other bodyguards. Being around him made her feel safe. But when they stepped out of the car at the villa, they noticed someone secretly taking photographs of them. The picture of Lena at the park had already spread across the internet. At first, Kai wanted to stop the photographer. Then he suddenly came up with a better plan. Instead of keeping Lena hidden in isolation, he decided to let her appear publicly. Kai even contacted the media himself and revealed that Lena was the daughter of a famous actress who had passed away. The news quickly shocked the public. To protect her, Kai trained Lena on how to handle reporters and taught her subtle hand signals she could use if she felt threatened. Soon the area outside the villa was filled with journalists. When Elise saw the news reports, she became extremely worried. If Lena accidentally revealed her true identity as Daniel CO's daughter, it could completely ruin his presidential campaign. Without hesitation, Elise secretly sent a special assassination team to the villa to eliminate Lena. But Kai had already sensed something was wrong. He carefully watched the crowd and even positioned a female bodyguard among the reporters as backup. When the first assassin attempted to enter the villa, Kai silently took him down before anyone noticed. He quickly sent Lena a message telling her to stay inside for the moment. The second attacker also fell quickly to Kai's combat skills. Afterward, he reassured Lena that everything was under control. But while returning, Kai suddenly encountered the team leader of the assassination squad. This opponent looked far more dangerous than the others. Instead of using weapons, the man threw his gun aside and challenged Kai to fight hand-to-hand. A brutal battle began between the two fighters, each refusing to back down. At the same time, Lena gathered her courage and stepped outside the villa. Standing before the crowd of reporters, she began explaining her story. When Elise arrived and saw Lena surrounded by journalists, she felt an overwhelming sense of panic. As the reporters started asking questions about Lena's father, Elise secretly ordered the assassin to open fire. But what Elise didn't realize was that Kai had already eliminated 2 of the assassins. The last attacker was still hiding somewhere in the crowd. The madam secretly signaled for him to make his move. But before the assassin could even blend into the reporters, the female bodyguard Kai had placed among them quietly took him down. After a brief moment of hesitation, Lena finally spoke to the reporters. She revealed that her father was the late film director Go Juno. With that statement, Lena instantly became the biggest threat to the madam. If Lena accidentally said anything exposing the truth, the madam could lose everything she had built. And once Lena disappeared from the public eye, it would become easy for someone to eliminate her. The next morning, Lena behaved very differently. For the first time, she greeted everyone warmly and even joined them for breakfast. Meanwhile, Kai arrived at the secret headquarters where the madam was waiting. She questioned him coldly about why he was helping Lena. Kai did not hold back. He criticized her for being heartless. He reminded her how she had once planned to eliminate the elderly couple from the fruit orchard. Now she was targeting an innocent girl like Lena. To him, her actions were no different from those of Park Won-soo, the man responsible for his girlfriend's death. Kai admitted that he didn't want Lena to become another victim like the woman he once loved. Without realizing it, he had begun treating Lena as someone important in his life. But for now, the most urgent mission was dealing with Park Won-soo. If they could find proof that he was illegally selling weapons to rebel groups, they could finally destroy him. Before Kai left, the madam reminded him to stay alive. Kai calmly replied that she didn't need to worry about him. As the madam and her team descended into the main hall, they suddenly encountered her younger half-brother. To her surprise, Lena was standing beside him. The madam instantly became tense. Her brother had always wanted control of the corporation, and Lena's existence could be used as a powerful weapon in their internal power struggle. He openly announced that he planned to take Lena with him. When the madam tried to stop him, he threatened to reveal Lena's true identity to the public. Since Lena had already appeared in the media, she technically had the freedom to go anywhere she wanted. Faced with this situation, the madam had no choice but to let them leave. Kai and several bodyguards followed closely behind. The madam's brother claimed he was taking Lena to see a psychologist and led them toward a hospital. Kai noticed that the doctor there seemed familiar with Lena, so he lowered his guard slightly. Taking advantage of the moment, the madam's brother tried to recruit Kai to his side. But Kai showed no interest in joining his political games. Suddenly, something felt wrong. Kai rushed into the clinic room, but it was completely empty. They had been tricked. Realizing she had fallen into her younger brother Choi Sun-won's trap, the madam became furious. She immediately ordered the entire GSS Special Forces unit to begin searching for Lena. Using surveillance cameras, the team soon located Choi Sun-won's vehicle. Kai was the first to reach the location. The driver handed him Sun-won's phone, which contained a message. The message warned that Kai must come alone, or Lena's life would be in danger. Without hesitation, Kai sped toward the destination. When he finally arrived, he discovered that everyone was safe. He quickly reported this to the madam, who finally relaxed. It turned out that Lena had planned the entire situation herself. All she wanted was a brief chance to escape the madam's control. For the first time in her life, Lena was experiencing true freedom. Kai quietly stayed by her side. Choi Sun-won originally intended to continue manipulating the situation, but Kai confronted him directly and demanded to know his real goal. Sun-won didn't bother hiding the truth. He wanted to use Lena as a weapon to defeat the madam and seize control. Kai made it clear he wasn't interested in their power struggles. All he cared about was completing his mission. Once that was done, he would leave. For Lena, this moment was one of the most meaningful she had ever experienced. She openly confessed her feelings to Kai, but their story was only just beginning. Many dangers still lay ahead. As the wife of a presidential candidate, the madam frequently appeared on television interviews. But during one particular interview, something felt different. The host began asking questions about Lena's mother. Everyone knew that Lena's mother and the madam had once been close friends. Soon after, Lena was unexpectedly brought onto the stage by Sun-won. Her sudden appearance shocked everyone in the audience. As soon as Lena took the microphone, she made a shocking statement. She said she believed that her mother's death years ago had not been an accident. She explained that on the day her mother died, 2 plane tickets to America had already been purchased. If she truly planned to end her life, Lena said, why would she buy tickets for a trip? This meant there had to be another truth behind her death. After the interview ended, Kai scolded Lena for appearing publicly without telling anyone. But Lena calmly pulled out a case file about her mother's death. According to the investigation report, her mother had not taken sleeping pills before she died. Even more disturbing, there were marks suggesting she had been restrained, implying someone else might have been responsible. Lena firmly believed that the madam was the one behind it. Meanwhile, the madam began to regret not eliminating Lena earlier. If Lena continued speaking publicly and revealed that she was Senator Daniel Seo's illegitimate daughter, all of the madam's plans could collapse. She immediately ordered her secretary, Dongmi, to deal with Lena. However, she specifically instructed that Kai must not be harmed. Surprisingly, Dongmi could see that the madam's judgment was clouded by her feelings for Kai. Because of this, she decided not to follow the order exactly. Not long after, several mysterious men arrived at the villa carrying a large suitcase. Kai happened to notice them from upstairs and instantly felt something was wrong. When the suitcase opened, it revealed toxic gas equipment. The men placed devices throughout the lower floor before putting on gas masks. Within seconds, thick poisonous smoke began spreading through the house. Kai immediately realized this had to be connected to the madam. He tried to call for help, but the phone signal had been blocked. Thinking quickly, he pushed a table against the wall and helped Lena climb into the ventilation shaft so she could escape. But Lena refused to leave him behind. Kai explained that if she stayed, he would constantly worry about protecting her. If that happened, neither of them would survive. Finally, he lifted her up and forced her into the ventilation shaft. After that, Kai used a landline to call the madam. But instead of her, Secretary Dongmi answered the phone. She claimed the madam was busy. Kai urgently asked her to send help and stop what was happening. But Dongmi coldly replied with a question. Why should I stop it? She had secretly decided to eliminate both Kai and Lena. The poisonous gas continued filling the building. The guards quickly collapsed after inhaling the fumes. Covering his mouth and nose, Kai attacked the masked men from behind. He knocked down two of them and ripped a gas mask off one attacker. But as he moved through the hallway, he suddenly encountered another group of armed assassins. They attacked him in the dark. During the struggle, Kai's mask was knocked off. Even while inhaling the gas, he relied on his superior combat skills to keep fighting. The battle was brutal. Inside the ventilation shaft, Lena watched everything in fear. Kai managed to land a powerful kick that knocked down one attacker. But after breathing in too much poison gas, he was finally overwhelmed and knocked to the ground. An assassin stepped forward, preparing to finish him. Suddenly, Lena jumped out from behind with a fire extinguisher and struck two attackers. She shouted Kai's name repeatedly, but he didn't respond. One masked man slowly stood up and began walking toward her. Terrified, Lena backed away step by step until she hid behind a column. Unfortunately, her coughing revealed her position. Before losing consciousness, Lena placed a gas mask over Kai's face. But she herself had already inhaled too much gas. Soon, both of them collapsed. Not long after, the female bodyguard and her team arrived and rescued them. At the same time, Senator Daniel Seo was facing a serious crisis. His political rival, Park Won-soo, had framed him in a scandal. Daniel was now under investigation. As an independent candidate, he had strong support from the public. But with the presidential election approaching, if he remained detained, he would lose the chance to campaign. This outcome was something the madam absolutely could not allow. The only solution left was to eliminate Park Won-soo directly. But assassinating him would be extremely dangerous. Anyone sent on that mission might never return. One minister suggested a name. When the madam heard it, she hesitated. The person they wanted to send was Kai. The madam struggled with the decision. Kai had saved her life before. They had fought side by side. How could she send someone she cared about on such a deadly mission? But in the end, she still called him. Kai looked at Lena before accepting the mission to deal with Park Won-soo. Although Lena begged him not to go, Kai headed toward the secret base. Before starting the mission, he gave two conditions. First, the madam must promise never to harm Lena again. Second, he wanted Secretary Dongmi's life. Dongmi, who had always been loyal to the madam, surprisingly agreed to the conditions. Before the operation began, the madam told Kai something unusual. If the situation became too dangerous, he could abandon the mission. She only wanted him to return safely. Kai jokingly said that didn't sound like the madam he knew. He failed to notice the feelings hidden behind her words. As she watched him leave, the madam felt a deep pain in her heart. Meanwhile, the entire GSS raid team prepared for the operation. Just before leaving, Kai received a call from Lena. She had sensed that this mission was extremely dangerous. All she asked was one thing: come back alive. But at the same time, Secretary Dongmi secretly gave another order to the raid team leader. No matter whether the mission succeeded or failed, Kai must be eliminated afterward. Soon, Park Won-soo received a warning from one of his informants. He learned that the madam's forces were planning to attack his base. Quickly, he prepared an ambush to capture the incoming raid team. However, Park Won-soo himself escaped to another hidden location. What he didn't know was that a sniper was already waiting there. As soon as the sniper spotted him, he reported the location to the madam. Everything had been part of her plan. First, she deliberately leaked information to force Park Won-soo to flee far away from the city. Then Kai led an ambush team to the area. Kai and the raid leader even disguised themselves as police officers to move closer without raising suspicion. Unfortunately, Park Won-soo's assistant noticed them. But by then, snipers had already surrounded the area. Both sides soon descended into a chaotic gun battle. Park Won-soo retreated into a house with his bodyguards. Kai and the raid leader chased him inside. During the fight, the raid leader was shot. Fortunately, Kai arrived just in time and saved him. But they both realized something. If Park Won-soo escaped again, everyone involved in this mission would die. And Kai had no choice but to continue the pursuit. Meanwhile, Park Won-soo had already escaped into a hidden underground chamber. Just as the heavy safe door was about to close, Kai suddenly threw himself inside. Park Won-soo believed he had finally escaped, but the moment he turned around, he froze. Kai was standing right behind him, a gun aimed directly at his head. Seeing Kai's cold and furious expression, Park Won-soo's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees and began begging for his life. Kai was filled with rage. He fired several bullets into the ceiling, trying to control his anger. He desperately wanted revenge for everything Park Won-soo had done. But then he remembered the promise he made to Lena, that he would return alive. If he killed Park Won-soo here, he knew he would never leave that room safely. The madam had also once said something important. For a man like Park Won-soo, death was not the worst punishment. Destroying his presidential ambitions would hurt him far more. So Kai forced himself to calm down. Instead of killing him, he began negotiating. First, he demanded that Park Won-soo order his men outside to release the captured raid team. Then, he forced him to call the madam. Taking advantage of the situation, Kai even demanded a huge ransom. Park Won-soo knew very well how dangerous the madam was, so he agreed immediately. The madam also understood Kai's situation. Because she wanted him to return safely, she agreed to let Park Won-soo live, but only on one condition. Park Won-soo had to arrange the release of Senator Daniel Seo. Later that night, the news announced that Senator Seo had joined the ruling party. Not long after, Kai returned carrying a bag full of money. When Lena saw him, she ran forward and hugged him tightly. But in another place, a very different scene was unfolding. As soon as Senator Seo returned home, he slapped his wife across the face. He angrily warned her never to harm Lena again. The madam stood there in shock and heartbreak. After everything she had done to protect his career, this was how he treated her. For years, she had used all her power and influence to support him politically. Yet in the end, this was the reward she received. But the madam was not someone who could be bullied so easily. She coldly reminded Senator Seo that everything he had today came from her. If necessary, she could destroy everything just as easily. This was the first time in her life that she had been slapped. But for the sake of the upcoming election, she decided to let it go for now. Still, she warned him that if he dared withdraw from the election, she would take back everything she had given him. At that moment, she realized she no longer had any feelings left for him. While carefully applying her makeup, her thoughts were focused on someone else. Later that night, she went to a small bar. But when she reached the entrance, she saw Kai and Lena sitting together inside. Seeing them laughing and drinking together made her heart ache deeply. Not wanting to disturb them, she quietly turned around and left. Meanwhile, Kai and the others became completely drunk and returned to the villa. Lena gently cleaned and bandaged Kai's wounds. Later, the two of them sat quietly together on the rooftop. The next day, Kai returned to headquarters. His teammates from the GSS raid unit warmly thanked him. After all, he had saved their lives during the mission. Even Secretary Dong-mi expressed her gratitude. Fortunately for her, Kai still didn't know about the order she had given to eliminate him. For now, the main target for both Kai and the madam remained Park Won-soo. Using intelligence from the organization's advanced analysis system, Kai discovered an important clue. The day Park Won-soo had visited his military post years ago, he had not come alone. Among the people accompanying him was the president's own son. This meant the president might also be secretly involved in Park Won-soo's illegal weapons deals. If they could find proof, they could bring down all of them at once. The president's son worked as a doctor at a nearby hospital. Kai decided to start the investigation there. He arranged for the raid team to appear openly at the hospital, creating pressure. The plan was simple. If the doctor became nervous enough, he would eventually make a mistake. After observing him for several days, Kai noticed that the doctor often spent long periods inside the break room. The evidence was probably hidden somewhere nearby. So Kai signaled his team to pretend they had finished their search. Then he walked out of the break room with a suspicious smile, making the doctor believe they had already discovered something. The doctor panicked. He immediately ordered his bodyguards to restrain Kai while he rushed back into the room. Under his chair, he secretly pulled out a USB drive that he had hidden there. What he didn't realize was that this had been Kai's plan all along. When he saw Kai's confident expression, the doctor suddenly realized something was wrong. Grabbing the USB, he ran. Kai chased after him, but several bodyguards blocked his path, and a fierce fight broke out. Meanwhile, the doctor jumped into a car and prepared to escape. But suddenly, Park Won-soo's men appeared. They were also after the USB. They dragged the doctor out of the car and tried to search him. In the chaos, the doctor attacked them and tried to run again. But this time, he had nowhere left to go. He stumbled, fell to the ground, and the evidence everyone had been chasing was finally within reach. Luckily, Kai rushed forward in time and grabbed the doctor before he could escape. With force, he dragged him back and threw him inside the building. The president's son barely managed to escape with his life, while Kai successfully seized the USB drive. But the people watching from the upper floor immediately demanded that he hand over the evidence. Kai knew he couldn't fight them all. Just then, a truck drove past the building. Taking a desperate gamble, Kai jumped from the upper level onto the moving truck. However, a bodyguard fired at him from above, and Kai was struck by a bullet. Realizing that escaping with the USB would be nearly impossible, Kai quickly hid the drive in the bushes beside the road. Moments later, Captain Cheol-ho arrived to help him. But it was already too late. Kai had been seriously injured. When the madam heard that Kai had been gravely wounded, she was deeply shaken. She immediately ordered Captain Cheol-ho to bring him back to GSS headquarters. From there, he was secretly taken down into the underground base. Seeing Kai covered in blood filled the madam with unbearable pain. She demanded that the doctor save him no matter what it took. The surgery began immediately. The bullet was eventually removed, but Kai's condition remained critical, leaving him unconscious. As the doctors worked desperately, the madam waited anxiously beside him. Every time the defibrillator activated, her heart felt like it was about to stop. After hours of emergency treatment, Kai finally managed to survive the critical stage. Meanwhile, news about the attack on the president's son quickly spread. Kai was immediately labeled as a prime suspect. Hearing this, Park Won-soo contacted the police chief and demanded that the entire GSS headquarters be searched. Soon, the police chief arrived with a large task force. However, the elevator they were guided into only led them to the 9th floor, which turned out to be nothing more than a simple data storage area. They had been deliberately kept away from the secret underground base. Elsewhere, powerful families, including Choi Sun-won's, were closely watching the situation. If the USB truly ended up in the madam's hands, then with her methods, all of them could be exposed. For now, no one dared to act. Everything depended on when the president's son regained consciousness. At the hospital, the president's son slowly woke up. He remembered that Kai had actually saved his life and had taken the USB. After hearing this, the president immediately ordered the police to withdraw from GSS headquarters. When Park Won-soo heard the news, he became extremely uneasy. He suspected that the madam had already obtained the USB, which could spell disaster for him. The madam also believed that Kai must have secured the evidence somewhere, which explained why the police suddenly withdrew. She quickly ordered Captain Cheol-ho to locate the USB. At the same time, Senator Daniel Seo also began searching for the drive. If he could get that USB containing proof of the tycoon's corruption, he could easily defeat Park Won-soo and free himself from the madam's control. Meanwhile, Lena learned that Kai had been seriously injured. Without hesitation, she rushed to the base to see him. Standing before the madam, Lena desperately called her mother and even knelt down to beg for permission to see Kai. In front of so many witnesses, the madam's expression softened. She had no choice but to agree. She brought Lena into a secret room and explained the situation. Kai was still in critical condition and couldn't be moved to a hospital. After all, the attack on the president's son was a serious crime. The madam had already done everything she could to protect him. She also warned Lena that Kai's identity had now been exposed. If Lena stayed in Korea, both of them would eventually be captured. The madam advised Lena to leave the country immediately, saying it was the only way to truly protect Kai. At the same time, Choi Sun-won secretly met with Park Won-soo. The two men formed a dangerous alliance to bring down the madam and compete for control of their powerful families. Sun-won then carried out a shocking plan. He arrived at his sister's company building with a suitcase bomb. After bribing a department head inside the company, he and his men forced their way into the underground base. Realizing the situation was extremely dangerous, the madam quickly ordered the armored doors to close to block their entry. But Sun-won calmly activated the bomb. It was set to explode in 2 hours. He demanded that his sister surrender control of the base. After delivering the threat, he casually sat down on the sofa as if everything was already decided. At the same time, Park Won-soo appeared through a video call. He demanded that the madam hand over the USB drive. By this time, Kai had finally regained consciousness after a long recovery. The madam quietly asked him what they should do. Kai calmly told her to leave the situation to him. She immediately understood his plan. The madam then told Park Won-soo that the USB had never been in her possession. According to her, Kai had always kept it. The department head beside her confirmed the story. The madam and Kai exchanged a meaningful glance. Kai then demanded a large payment from Park Won-soo. He said he would leave the base and personally deliver the USB. Park Won-soo believed Kai was still weak from surgery and no longer capable of fighting. So he agreed. Before leaving, Kai advised the madam to surrender the base to ensure her safety. He promised that one day he would help her regain everything she had lost. The madam smiled bitterly. This underground base contained far too many secrets. Everyone who knew about it wanted to control it. Long ago, she had already shared full access to the base with Kai, proof of how much she trusted him. As Kai walked away, she remembered every moment they had spent together. Just before leaving, Kai quietly instructed the base's AI security system to close the armored doors once he and Park Won-soo's men exited. After they left, the madam's expression suddenly turned cold. She ordered the elevator system to shut down and blocked all external communications. The people outside immediately began to panic. Even Choi Sun-won struggled to keep his composure. Meanwhile, the madam ordered the base's surveillance cameras to live stream everything to Secretary Dong-mi's phone. And what happened next would decide everyone's fate. On the other side, Secretary Dong-mi received the signal. Without hesitation, she mobilized every member of the GSS Emergency Task Force. The final game had begun. For anyone who betrayed her, the madam had no intention of showing mercy. Using the organization's powerful intelligence system, she quickly located the family members of the minister who had betrayed her. Their address was sent directly to a hired assassin group in the United States. To make sure the job would be done, she immediately transferred a large payment. When the minister realized his family was in danger, he collapsed to his knees and begged for mercy. The madam calmly told him there was only one way to save them. If he ended his own life, his family would be spared. Desperate to protect his children and grandchildren, the minister slowly picked up a gun from a nearby guard. Meanwhile, Kai had finally located the USB drive he had hidden earlier. But before he could escape, Park Won-soo's men suddenly attacked him and knocked him to the ground. One of them picked up a gun and aimed directly at Kai's head. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, Captain Cheol-ho arrived in time and shot the attacker. Kai then reluctantly handed the USB to Senator Daniel Seo. Without wasting another second, Kai drove straight toward Park Won-soo's safe house. But when he broke inside, the building was empty. One of Park Won-soo's men revealed shocking news. Lena had been kidnapped. Park Won-soo demanded that Kai bring the USB if he wanted to see her alive again. Meanwhile, Senator Seo proudly called the madam to boast about obtaining the USB. But the madam barely cared about his victory. Her only concern was Kai's safety. Soon afterward, Park Won-soo discovered that the USB was now in Senator Seo's possession. He threatened Seo and demanded the drive in exchange for Lena. Kai quickly tracked down the place where Lena had been held, but he arrived too late. She had already been moved to DSS headquarters. At the same time, Kai learned another terrifying truth from Park Won-soo's butler. The bomb that Choi Sun-won had brought earlier had been secretly modified. Once activated, it could not be stopped. This meant that everyone inside the underground GSS base would eventually die. Realizing the danger, Kai rushed back toward headquarters. Meanwhile, Lena was being escorted toward the underground base by Park Won-soo's men. Suddenly, her trainer and Captain Cheol-ho launched a surprise attack on the guards. During the chaos, Lena ran toward the parking lot to escape. But someone suddenly grabbed her from behind and covered her mouth. The movement instantly reminded her of the person who had attacked her mother years ago. When she turned around, she froze. The person standing behind her was the trainer. At that moment, the truth was finally revealed. Lena's mother had not been killed by the madam. Instead, the assassination had been ordered by the chairman, and the trainer had been the one who carried it out. Meanwhile, Kai returned to the underground base. Using a safety rope, he descended directly to the 9th basement level. But the moment he arrived, Choi Sunwon grabbed Lena and took her hostage. Kai had no choice but to let them leave temporarily. At first, Kai planned for Lena to escape together with Sunwon. But Sunwon had no interest in protecting anyone. As he stepped into the elevator, he suddenly shot Kai. Before the elevator doors closed, Sunwon cruelly threw the only safety rope down the shaft. Seeing this, Kai made a difficult decision. He begged the madam to leave the basement and save herself. But she quietly shook her head. She said she was too tired to keep fighting. The man she loved cared about another woman, and she felt she had no place left in this world. Instead, she asked Kai to make sure Secretary Dong-mi escaped safely. Reluctantly, the remaining 4 people supported each other and moved toward the elevator rope. At the same time, Kai contacted the team upstairs and gave them an unexpected order. He told them to shoot the cable holding the elevator, allowing it to fall into the empty shaft below. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, Senator Daniel Seo stepped out. He revealed his final plan. He would drag the bomb into a bulletproof chamber. If it exploded inside the sealed room, the impact would be reduced, giving the others a chance to survive. Before leaving, he entrusted Lena to Kai's care. Lena burst into tears. Seo then pulled the bomb into the sealed room and locked himself inside. Behind the thick glass door, the countdown continued. After the explosion, the chaos slowly came to an end. Lena later took the seat once held by the madam, becoming the sole heir of the powerful conglomerate. Meanwhile, Park Won-soo was captured by Kai and handed over to Captain Cheol-ho. Facing the consequences of his crimes, he was eventually forced to end his own life. On another side, Secretary Dong-mi stepped out of a car where Choi Sun-won was being held captive. Justice had finally caught up with him as well. But Lena had no desire to inherit the power and wealth of the corporation. Instead, she made a shocking decision. She publicly released the secrets contained in the USB drive she had discovered in the sealed room. Within moments, South Korea's political world fell into chaos as corruption at the highest levels was exposed. In the end, Lena gave up her inheritance. She and Kai left everything behind and moved far away. Together, they started a new life in Spain, finally experiencing the freedom they had both been fighting for. And with that, the story comes to an end. You've just experienced another story on Cinema, Rewritten, where every story finds a new voice. I'll see you in the next one.